Before I answer your questions, I would like to say that who really gets into doubts and who are the people who never have any questions? The humanity can be grouped into these two groups: the people who have questions, the people who do not have questions or never have questions. Let me talk about the people who never had any questions or do not have questions. They might have had before. The people who never think. See? They're even too lazy to think. So they never have to question anything. Simply, whatever it is, okay, fine. Too lazy to even think of. The total illiterates. Never thought anything, never read anything, never heard anything. And what is the question there in their life? Nothing. The other category in the never have questions is the people who know all the answers already. There's no need for them to ask questions because they know it already. The one who doesn't want to know, no question. The one who knows everything, no questions. Then who have the questions? The one who wants to know and do not know the answer. So the in-between, sort of halfway house people. Neither this extreme nor that extreme, the in-between. The people who are thinking and who want to reach the goal, they don't seem to find the way. In a way, almost all the scriptures are here by the way of answering the questions of the seekers. If you read the Upanishads, the 108 Upanishads in the Hindu system, they're all nothing but answers to the questions. The seeker asks, the seer says, explains. So the fact that people are asking questions means that they are looking for something. They are seeking for something. Now, why does anybody want to become a seeker? Why can't they just enjoy life and whatever comes, fine? Name, fame, money, possessions. They can just enjoy. What makes them become seekers? To make a little pun, when they become seekers, you know what I mean? When they become seekers, or at least to be a little more open, when in their life realize that they are sick and tired of everything, then they begin to seek. You see, you become sick first and then you begin to seek next. You see, the world is really very helpful in that respect. It makes you sick and tired, and sooner the better. Then you begin to seek. That's why the Mother Nature is created for that purpose, to help you and to goad you towards the truth from the falsified life, superficial, shallow life. So that's why the scriptures say, know the mother first. Or in other words, know the nature and its nature first. That there is nothing deep in it. There is nothing permanent in it. Everything is impermanent. Power is impermanent. Position is impermanent. Name is impermanent. Fame is impermanent. Beauty is impermanent. You have to keep on lifting the face. Changing the nose. Nose is impermanent. Money is impermanent. Look at that budget problem now. It's all collapsing now. Dollar is impermanent. The other day, Chidanji was telling me that is it in Lebanon? It was 3, is it Lebanese pounds? For 3 pounds for $1 in those days. Now, very soon it has come down to 900 pounds for $1. One American dollar can buy only 3 Lebanese pounds in those days. Now they can buy 900 pounds. See the valuation? So what is permanent? The dollar. Even dollar itself. In those days, you by $1 you can buy a lot of things. Now for the same thing you have to pay at least $100. It has become, present dollar is a penny in those days. And that is the lesson that the world or the Mother Nature is trying to tell us. It's all right, use us, handle us, keep us, but do not depend on us for your permanent happiness. Patanjali in Raja Yoga says, Dukkhameva sarvam vivekinaha. For a viveki, for a person who has the discriminative faculty, who can discriminate which is permanent, which is impermanent, for such a person, everything is painful. There's nothing really happy in this world. You get excited, you lose depressed, keep on changing. So you become sick and tired. Oh, I'm sick and tired of the whole show. People even with a lot of money, they say, oh, I'm sick and tired. People with a lot of fame say, Hollywood, people go to Hollywood stars. They just want to drop out from the heaven. They're sick and tired of being. How many Hollywood stars ultimately end up in swallowing bottles of sleeping pills and collapse? We put their pictures everywhere, praise them, worship them more than gods. But in their personal life, they are sick and tired. That is the lesson that we learn. And when we become that kind of sick, then we say, so then where is the real happiness? How can I be permanently happy when all these things are going to make me miserable? Is there any way? Then you begin to seek. You begin to look for the right place. It is at that point you begin to question the value of the worldly things and the value of the real thing. So a questioning mind is a seeking mind. And when you really ask for it, you get the answer. It doesn't have to be from a particular individual or going somewhere here. If you really seek, anything and everything can begin to teach you. And that is the reason why we have a saying, when the student is ready, who appears? Teacher appears. Yeah. The student, when the student is ready, when you really look for the answer, teacher appears. In what form? Not necessarily with a long beard or with a shaven head or with an orange robe. Anything can teach you. Even a stone teaches you. A thorn under the rose can teach you a good lesson. I often say even a broomstick can teach you a fantastic lesson. But if you are ready to learn. Yes. The great Guru, Dattatreya, had several Upagurus, he called it. A fisherman was a teacher. A drunkard was a teacher. You can learn from anything and anybody if you are interested in learning.
It is not an ordinary thing. This is a sanctified place. It is heaven on earth now. When good people of devotion and aspiration and spiritual vibrations, spiritual aura and spiritual samskaras and vasanas gather together and live together as a family and chant the name of God together, do silent meditation together, pray together, see, and do satsang and listen to spiritual discourse together, that place is sanctified, that place is hallowed, that place is verily like the presence of God's own place. See, it's like God's own place. It's more like Mecca or Medina or this, Jerusalem, whatever, Kashi, Varanasi. There, you see, there is no Kali Yuga. In that place there is no Kali Yuga. Therefore, verily indeed, you are to be congratulated. You are most fortunate. You have gathered together treasures, spiritual treasures, and don't lose them. Don't lose them. See? Keep them. And that is where mind, the nature of the mind, control of the mind, all these things come. So much treasures you have gathered together over these 3 or 4 or 5 days. In morning meditation period, maybe you must have had readings done from Gurudev's books and Swami Satyananda's books and all the questions and answer sessions, maybe all these things you have to take together and treasure it and keep it, reflect over it and meditate upon it. But the mind will not allow you to do it. Before you go halfway to your home, half of it will be forgotten. See, part of the business of the mind is to make you forget all things worthwhile remembering. See? And that which is so much of garbage, that which is so much of dirty, it should not be in the mind. You must forget it long ago. You should throw it out. You will never be able to forget. It will always be there. And it will come only when you are trying to meditate in the morning. You won't know where it is. All the most unnecessary, unwanted, undesirable things, they will come up. So what you want to forget, you will not forget. And it will come when you don't want it to come. And so that's the perpetual question always aimed at gurus. What to do, Swamiji? When I sit to meditate, number 1, mind cannot concentrate, always disturbing. Number 2, horrible thoughts come into me. Horrible thoughts. I am shocked. I despair. I want to meditate upon God. Oh, such impossible things come. I am frightened. Where do they come from? Nowhere, don't worry, it is coming from inside you only. Because sometime or other it has been put into the computer. See? But this computer does not give data only when you ask for it. Uncalled, unasked also, it starts spewing things. See? And so, this is the nature of the mind. It retains what should not be retained, and what you want to carefully remember, 50% will be forgotten 50 kilometers. And as you drive 100 kilometers slowly. So, God Himself has said, He is both mind, remembrance as well as its opposite. Forgetfulness. Forgetfulness. Therefore, you must make a special effort. Therefore, Gurudev used to say, after hearing a satsang devotedly, first important thing is, mind will not allow you to hear it with full attention. While the speaker is speaking, 5-10 minutes it will hear. Afterwards it will start being distracted here and there. I will take it there, and ear will take it somewhere else. And sometimes you will be appearing as though you are a very, very attentive hearer. But mind will be somewhere, wool gathering somewhere else. And the speaker will feel flattered, how attentively this person is here. The person is not there. Therefore, Baba Ramdas had to write a special book, Be Here Now. Because mind goes away. It goes on its own round. Body is here, mind is elsewhere. These are all things, if you listen attentively, he used to say, first of all, little attentively you must hear. Gurudev used to say, Datta Chitta. Listen, Datta Chitta. That means giving your entire mind, listen to what is going on. And he used to say, immediately after the satsang, when the satsang is over, you disperse. Don't go here and there chattering, people gossiping. Go straight before it evaporates, jot it down. Go straight to your room or sit under a tree somewhere alone, and then recollect and jot down when it's still fresh in your mind. Jot down all the main points. Then go on doing it all the 3 or 4 days, because he used to say that because in headquarters, Rishikesh, Gurudev's holy ashram on the banks of Divine Mother Ganga, in his days, we used to have every year 2 such spiritual retreats of full 1 week's duration, 7 days. And here in West nowadays, the usually it starts, the so-called 4 days retreat means Friday evening they will come. It will start only in the nights. And then whole of Saturday it will be there. And Sunday sometimes it will be over after lunchtime. See? So actually it is hardly 1.5 days. But in Rishikesh, the spiritual retreat was 7 days, and the first day it started from 4 a.m. in the morning. See? And so during Sadhanamik, day after day, there are many discourses. So you used to say, each day's discourse, go and take down notes, keep a diary, maintain a diary. And many of them did it. So year after year they used to come. They accumulated a good, big diary of spiritual directions, information, instructions, inspirational words. So they all become wonderful sadhaks. And sometimes he asked if someone was maintaining a diary very regularly, hey, what are you keeping? I am keeping notes. Let me see. Oh, you are very thorough. Oh, give it to me. I will give it to afterwards. He will give it to someone, type half a dozen copies of all his notes. And then he will publish it in the Divine Life magazine, and soon afterwards, if there is some book, he will add this also to that book. He will add it in the book, so it will go all over the world. Like that, he never allowed any good word of wisdom or instruction to be lost. This was the way. But unless you know how to counter the mind, you know what the nature of the mind is to make things forget. It will fade away after something. So to counter it, I will put it down in black and white. So mind cannot play any trick with me, because now it is concrete outside. So even if the mind forgets, I have got it in front of me. Now thanks to science, we have got all things into tape, see, cassette tape. So, this problem of mind, how to remember, how not allow it to forget, how to control it, and allow it only to give admission to such thoughts that are okay, and not give admission to thoughts we don't want. It is a most important science. Most important science. And a unique book Gurudev wrote long ago, nearly 50 years back. He wrote a book called Mind, Its Mysteries and Control. The first part of it was already in print, even as early as 1934. See? It was printed in a well-known press, Gorakhpur, Gita Press, Gorakhpur. They printed only Hindi and Sanskrit works. But they were so much taken up by this book of Gurudev, the teachings of Gurudev, they undertook to print in English, a rare departure for them. You see, in English, Gurudev's first edition of Mind, Its Mysteries and Control, Part 1. And later on it has been expanded. It's a unique book of its kind in the world. The importance of knowing about our mind and knowing also how to control it is precisely because mind constitutes your human status. You are a human being because you have a thinking faculty. And also, in that thinking faculty, a specialized faculty, reasoning faculty. See, the faculty of intellect, intelligent reasoning, logic, asking questions, inquiring, analyzing, and discriminating, further investigating, making research, comparing and contrasting. All these things, the higher aspect of the mental mechanism called the intellectual function, intellectual process is able to do. That is why we are human beings. Biologically we are same as any animal, any creature, any subhuman creature. Absolutely no difference. See? In all the functionings of the biological, physical body, see, everything duplicated throughout nature. See? Eating, drinking, sleeping, sex, and fatigue, desire for rest, fear, desire for survival, they are same in all forms of life, including this animal, physical animal, whether it's an insect or a reptile or a bird or a fish or a beast or a big animal, whether it's an elephant or a giraffe or a camel or a small little animal, or this physically the human animal is the same as any other form of living beings. Biologically, physically we are the same, with one little exception. That is, we have a vertebral column, spine. Other animals have got a horizontal vertebral column that is parallel to the ground. Parallel to the ground. That means they live all their life and pass away in the same level of evolution. They don't ascend, go higher and higher. That ability only man, as it were, to symbolize that his spirit has a vertical dimension, it can ascend to higher heights. Otherwise, biologically we are all animals. Because we are endowed with this inner faculty, inner man, the psychological being, that mechanism which gives us, endows us with the power to think, feel, reason. We are human beings. And therefore, that constitutes our human status. And because we, man, the animal, became endowed with this unique faculty, he became the human being, human creature. Our species became different. And because he was endowed by this unique feature, now we have conquered everything. We have landed a man on the moon. We are able to take 400 passengers in comfort, see, beyond the clouds, more than 5 miles away from the surface of the earth, 35,000 feet above sea level, and in comfort, where there is maybe below 65 degrees temperature outside the plane. If you fall there, finished. You will become frozen there. And inside you sit in comfort. And you even ask for a cold drink with ice in it. See, when the outside temperature is minus 65. And all because of this marvel called mind.